Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the John F. Kennedy Jr. Forum at Harvard Kennedy School. I'm delighted to see you all here for a very special occasion. This afternoon, we will be presenting the 2017 Gleitzman Citizen Activist Award to the Honorable John Lewis, U.S. Congressman from Georgia and one of the great public figures of our time. Through his words and his actions, both before entering Congress and since that time, Congressman Lewis has set such an important example of courageous, determined, and thoughtful leadership. I know of no one who has worked more tirelessly or more effectively as a citizen and as an elected official to make our country better. And on a personal note, I will just add that in my own years working for the Congress, no member of the House or Senate asked me more insightful questions or treated me more graciously than Congressman Lewis. Congressman, it is truly our honor to welcome you back to Harvard and to the Kennedy School. Thank you so much. The Gleitzman Award Program is housed at the Center for Public Leadership here at the Kennedy School. The center is directed with great energy and skill by David Gergen and Max Bazerman, and it benefits tremendously from the guidance and support of a leadership council, many of whose members are with us today. I want to welcome them and express our gratitude for their commitment to our mission. I'm also grateful, as always, to the Institute of Politics for helping to arrange this afternoon's talk. Let me say a bit about the Gleitzman Award, and then I will turn the podium over to David Gergen, who will give a proper introduction to Congressman Lewis. The Gleitzman Award was launched about 25 years ago by Alan Gleitzman and his life partner, Sherry Roche. Alan was a Cornell alumnus, an Air Force veteran, and a very successful television executive who established the Gleitzman Foundation to support social change that improves people's lives. The Gleitzman Award recognizes the accomplishments of great social activists who have inspired others and shaped our world for the better. Alan enlisted Maya Lin, the designer of the National Vietnam Veterans Memorial, to design a sculpture representing the award, which we will present to Congressman Lewis shortly. In 2006, Alan and Sherry decided that this award needed an academic home, and they made a generous bequest to the Center for Public Leadership at the Kennedy School. Their gift has enabled the center to continue this award program and to share the lessons of the awardees with our community. In addition, Alan and Sherry's generous gift allows us to bring to the Kennedy School each year a group of students who are already accomplished social activists. The Gleitzman Leadership Fellows currently enrolled at the school are here this afternoon, as are a number of alumni fellows. Moreover, we recently created a professorship in honor of Alan Gleitzman. I'm very pleased to acknowledge Julie Batalana, who was named the Alan Gleitzman Professor of Social Innovation at the Kennedy School last year. For the Gleitzman Award, past winners include Brian Stevenson, Al Gore, Gloria Steinem, Wendy Kopp, and a number of others who are here in the audience today. Janet Mangini, Patricia Young, Jeffrey Wigand, Mark Rosenbaum, Jonathan Williams, Geraldine Jensen, Margot Stern-Strom, and Rebecca Oney. I would like all of you in the audience who have a connection to the Gleitzman program to please stand up so the rest of us can acknowledge you. Please join me, everyone, in thanking these incredible change agents who have been supported by the Gleitzman program. Thank you all. This year's winner of the Gleitzman Citizen Activist Award was selected by a committee consisting of David, Max, Julie, Patty Bellinger, Dana Bourne, and Nancy Koehn. I'm grateful to all of them for their careful attention to this important choice and to the wonderful choice that they made. I'm grateful to all of you for being here. Let me turn the podium over to David Gergen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening. John Robert Lewis was born in 1940 in rural Alabama. the son of sharecroppers. Alabama was then a hotbed of segregation, as you know. And by the time he was a teenager, he had joined the civil rights movement inspired by the bus boycott in Montgomery and by the leader of that boycott, listened to over the radio, Martin Luther King Jr. John went off to college in Nashville, Tennessee, a center of gathering student protests against the Jim Crow South. There, John earned a degree in religion and philosophy at Fisk University and a degree from the American Baptist Theological Seminary. As a student, he also began organizing sit-ins at local lunch counters, and at the age of 19, volunteered to join the Freedom Rides, which were challenging segregation at interstate bus terminals. From those days forward, John Lewis has dedicated his life to activism on behalf of human rights, always with extraordinary courage, fierce determination, and a capacity to inspire others. In those Freedom Rides, and we have our own Marshall Gans, I believe, was on those Freedom Rides in those days. In those Freedom Rides, John often sat in seats reserved for whites and became a target for threats and violence. In the years that followed, he was arrested over 40 times and severely beaten by mobs. But he never retreated. At the age of 23, he was named head of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and in that same year was a key figure in the famous March on Washington, where Martin Luther King Jr. told us of his dream for America. John Lewis not only helped to organize that march, but he was the youngest speaker. Those were tumultuous years when believers in civil rights were tested in ways that echoed the Civil War. At the age of 25, John Lewis and his friend Hosea Williams organized a march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama. Some 600 people joined them as they departed from Selma across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. At the top of the bridge, looking down at the river below and ahead at state troopers on the other side, Hosea asked John, "Can you swim?" "No," said John. "Well," said Hosea, "neither can I, but we might have to." They kept marching. And on the other side, troopers on horses waving nightsticks charged into the marchers, beating them savagely. One struck John viciously on the head, and John went down hard. Quote, "I thought I was going to die," he said, his head fractured. That march, that Bloody Sunday, as it has been so rightly called, was a dramatic spark in the passage of landmark legislation, the Civil Rights Voting Rights Act of 1965. Just pause and think of it. By the time John Lewis was 25 years old, he had become one of what has been called the Big Six leaders in America's civil rights movement, a lasting hall of fame that includes A. Philip Randolph, James Farmer, Roy Wilkins, Whitney Young, and of course Martin Luther King Jr. The person missing from that list is Coretta Scott King. But think of that, the age of 25, he was among those wonderful people. Only John Lewis is still alive, and for half a century he has remained at the front of the march. In the immediate aftermath of the Voting Rights Act, he helped to register over 4 million African Americans. He was elected to the Atlanta City Council, and in 1986 was elected to the U.S. Congress from Georgia, where he has served with distinction for over 30 years and has inspired a whole new generation of activists. The eyes of the nation tonight are turning to one of his interns, John Ossoff, who is running for the seat in the district next door in Georgia. Think of that, how much his legend has meant now for a rising generation. In creating this award, Alan Gleitzman wanted to honor those who have demonstrated the power of one individual through courage, dedication, and activism to change the course of history. What pride he would have taken if he were with us still tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me now in saluting our 2017 winner of the Gleitzman Award, John Robert Lewis. Thank you, sir. Designed by Maya Lin, and I think entirely fitting for this occasion. Congressman, if you might take a seat, we're going to remove this, and we're calling two people up now to moderate a conversation. I think if you can sit right there, sir.
Right here?
Right here. Yes, right here.
You,
oh, which way? You going the other way? Okay, fine. Okay.
yeah.
What do I know? I want to ask two people to come up. Mamie, where are you, Mamie? And Umana and Nancy Koehn. Why don't you come on up now? Let me just talk to you.
Congratulations. So wonderful.
God bless you, rock star.
In many ways, this represents the passing of a torch, because Imei is a rising star of her generation. She came here to Harvard College. She has a deep interest in criminal justice. After Harvard College, she enrolled at the Kennedy School and at the Harvard Law School. Here at the Kennedy School, she completed a year in just this past year, and she was here as a Johnson Fellow. Sheila Johnson has provided this wonderful fellowship. See, Sheila, you might stand for a moment.
God bless.
And you should know that Imei went off to the law school, whereas I think many of you know she was elected president of the Harvard Law Review. And I want you to know that she is not only the first African American woman to be elected in 130 years of the Law Review, but she's also the first African American since President Obama.
Yeah.
We're so pleased. Now, and Nancy Koehn is an endowed professor at the business school, but her heart is very much across the river. She's been teaching here at the Kennedy School, and she is about to publish a wonderful new book that seems extremely appropriate for tonight. And the title is Forged in Crisis: The Power of Courageous Leadership in Turbulent Times. What a great segue to this evening. Thank you both.
Thank you,
all.
David.
Okay.
Thank you. I was trying to understand the energy in this room as we walked in. It's so powerful. It's so fertile and hopeful, and yet very taut and welcoming at the same time. And I was thinking, what is going on, right? We know Congressman Lewis is here. This is an extraordinary honor. And then it hit me as I was turning the corner, and I said to Professor Gates, we're here because this is serious goodness, right? We're in the presence of serious goodness, and what an honor it is. Just one other comment, I was so struck by how young you were. You were so young when you were, climbing on the buses, right? And advising Dr. King and chewing the fat with Roy Wilkins. You were so young.
Well, young people can be inspired to get up, stand up, and speak up, and get in the way.
Get in the way.
or get in what I call good trouble, necessary trouble.
Yeah, well, God bless you for it. But I was also reminded of a remark that a progressive folk singer of my parents' generation, a guy named Tom Lehrer, once said, and I think it speaks for a lot of leaders. He said, "It's a sobering thought to realize that when Mozart was my age, he had been dead 3 years." Right, so you're so precocious, and we're lucky for it. We're gonna, ImeIme and I are gonna ask Congressman Lewis some questions, and I want to just say one other small tapas dish, offer a tapas dish by way of appetizers. If you didn't see the interview that Congressman Lewis did in the Gazette today, it is 3 extraordinarily powerful pages about the power of leadership in service to higher ends, and I commend it to you most enthusiastically. Congressman Lewis, what do you think, as someone who's been made a leader, as well as, helped make other leaders, what do you think were some of the most important moments on your journey? What do you carry around as the critical inflection points?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm delighted and honored to be here tonight. To be here at Harvard, John F. Kennedy School, be honored with this unbelievable award. I feel more than lucky. I feel very blessed. I grew up in rural Alabama, as you heard. I tasted the bitter fruits of racism. I saw the signs that said white men, colored men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. To go downtown on a Saturday afternoon to see a movie, all of us little black children had to go upstairs to the balcony. All of the little white children went downstairs. I would come home and ask my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents why. They would say, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way. Don't get in trouble. But Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. inspired me to get in trouble. And I've been getting in trouble ever since. It is my simple belief that when you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something, to say something. I call something this feeling, and it may not, philosophers may not agree with me, and great thinkers, but I call it the spirit of history. It's just something track you down, something pick you up. And so you must do it. You must go for it. You must pick them up, put them down, and give it all you have. Wow. And that's what I've been trying to do.
Can I ask you one follow-up? This book that David mentioned is all about the making of 5 leaders, from Ernest Shackleton to Frederick Douglass to Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Rachel Carson. And they got more resilient, they got braver as they faced adversity, as they made trouble in the interest of a higher good. Are you braver and more resilient than you were 70 years ago?
Oh, I think so. I'm more determined now than ever before. Because I think that's a calling. Yeah. You get beaten, you get knocked down, you get arrested a few times. You say, well, it makes you stronger, makes you more determined, and encourage you to resist. You tear down, you open certain doors. You end certain unbelievable ways. And you have to keep going. We're not there yet.
No, but we can't give up.
We cannot give up. I tell people, don't give up. Don't get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful. Keep the faith. Keep pushing. Keep pulling. I think it is a calling.
Right, that's very powerful. And again, the reason I asked him is because I want the young people in the audience, right, the new leaders, to hear about the importance of moving into the fray and developing resilience.
Great, and I want to kind of drill down a little bit more on doing. In many interviews and in your book, you mentioned that the march from Selma to Montgomery kind of created a sense of what you call righteous indignation among Americans, right? That seeing images from Bloody Sunday compelled demonstrations across many cities. And that I think what was important about these demonstrations was that they were really effective. just 8 days after Bloody Sunday on March 15th, 1965, President Johnson calls for equal voting rights. I'd love to know if you see any parallels between then and now, and specifically, do kind of contemporary images of state violence compel this same sense of righteous indignation? And then if they have, does that mean, has the government been responsive enough? And if they haven't, does that mean we've become desensitized to these type of images?
Well, I see the making. Something is happening. You know, there's a song, something is happening there. But something is happening. We are in the process of creating an unbelievable movement. The day after the inauguration, I see hundreds and thousands, millions of women all over our own country, but all over the world. And husbands and boyfriends and sons and daughters marching with these women. To see people saying, we're not going to take it anymore. To hear people, young people and children saying, we're not going back, we're going forward. That we come too far, we made too much progress to go back. I think the march from Selma to Montgomery and the response of President Lyndon Johnson made it crystal clear that something was happening. There was this sense of righteous indignation. It was 600 of us, primarily African American. Mm-hmm. But after the violence, after the beating, there were thousands of people, ministers, priests, rabbis, nuns, majority white, coming to Selma to show their sense of solidarity, demanding that the Congress act.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And then on the theme of that, I was kind of a bit shocked, actually, several years ago when the Klansman who once beat you and left you in a pool of blood in Rock Hill, South Carolina, for sitting in a white-only waiting room. He comes to your office in 2009, and he asks you for forgiveness, and you forgave him. And then just 3 hours away from Rock Hill, South Carolina, is Charleston, South Carolina, where 9 members of the Emmanuel AME Church were murdered by Dylann Roof. And victims' family members and relatives looked at Dylann Roof in court and said, I forgive you, to him. And so I'm wondering, what do you see the role between seeking justice and how forgiveness interacts with that?
Well, it is in keeping, in my own estimation, with the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. To be able to forgive, to be able to lay down the burden. This man had been a member of the Klan, came to my office in Washington. He heard from a reporter that I was there. He knew he had participated in the beating, but he also was moved by the fact that President Barack Obama had been elected and had taken the oath, and he wanted to lay down his own burden. He came in, he said, Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you in May of 1961. He was in his 70s. His son came with him. His son was in his 40s. He said, I want to apologize. Will you accept my apology? Will you forgive me? His son started crying. He started crying. They hugged me, I hugged them back, and the three of us cried together. It is the power of the way of peace, the way of love, the power of the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence.
Thank you.
It's graduation season at Harvard, which means all kinds of things, but it also means benedictions, Congressman Lewis, and advice, heartfelt and credible, more powerful than other kinds, to graduating seniors, graduating MPPs, graduating law students. What pearls of wisdom and exhortations would you make to this talented group of people that will not only assembled in this room, but will stream and click and tweet and, really, really log into you because of your goodness and because of the power of your presence and your work. So what would you say to them? Because you will have influence, great influence.
I said to all of the graduates, look, you've been well educated. You have skills. You're smart. You're beautiful. You're handsome. Just get out there and help change our society. Help redeem not just the soul of America, but the soul of the world. That you have a moral obligation, a mission, and a mandate to do your best to look out for all humankind. I would also never become bitter. Never, never, ever give up. You may get knocked down, but get up. I was knocked down on that bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Left bloody, unconscious. But I didn't give up.
No.
I kept the faith. And that's what all of us must do, especially during these days.
These momentous days.
Yes.
Because they are momentous, don't you think, Congressman Lewis?
Yeah, I get out from time to time. I be speaking to students, young people at religious institution, and people say, I'm so down, I don't know what to do, and I need a hug. And they say, can I hug you? I say, yes, I need a hug too. and so we all just hug. Just love everybody. And move together as one people, as one family, not just as the American family, but as the world family. Because we all live in the same house, the world house. We're one family, we're one people.
Fantastic.
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 So at this point, we'll open it up to Q&A with the audience. You can line up behind one of the 4 microphones. And all that we ask is that you introduce yourself and you ask a brief question that ends in a question mark. And so we'll start here.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is William Greenlaw, green like the color, law like attorney at law. I first want to thank you for your service, Congressman. It's incredibly appreciated, and words cannot say how much we've all benefited from your legacy. I do have a question, though. There is an inherent debate within the next generation of civil rights people who are fighting for justice about the direction we should turn. Some say that the system is so corrupt that we need to fight it from the outside and deconstruct it. Others argue that the means and methods inside of the system are sufficient and can be reworked. Moving forward, how can we balance calls from the outside to replace the system and efforts from the inside to reform it?
We need both. We need both. And some of us have the ability or the capacity to fight from the inside as well as the outside. Look, because I'm a member of Congress, I have not lost the ability to get out and march. When we had more than 63,000 women marching in Atlanta, they asked me to lead the march. And I said yes. I said I marched in Nashville, I marched in Washington, I marched in Selma, and I'm prepared to march again. We can never do enough to bring people together as one people. So the people who say, I'm just going to work from the inside, that's okay, go ahead and do it, do your best. But some of us can do both.
All right, thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Congressman Lewis, my name is David Evans. I work in the undergraduate admissions office here at Harvard for 48 years. I was in Nashville in '60 when you guys were attacked in Woolworth. The foot soldiers of the civil rights movement, the foot soldiers of the anti-war movement, the foot soldiers of other movements were college students then, and they have been that most of those years. Today, it is hard to sort of invigorate college students. And I guess that the median age American is 37, median age Black American is 34. Those persons did not experience those movements. Have you any wisdom you can share with us about how maybe to inspire and invigorate the possible foot soldiers, many of whom are in this room?
Well, I must tell you, I don't want to come here and promote my book. But we did a graphic book called March. When I was growing up, I guess when I was about 17, I read a little book called Martin Luther King Jr. and the Montgomery Story. It was a comic book. It sold for 10 cents, 16 pages. So many of our young people have the 10-word problem when it comes to the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., I have a dream. And young people, young children, people in colleges and universities, churches and synagogues are reading March. They said to young people, to another generation, you too can make a contribution. You too can do something. The young people will lead us. They get it. And they will be our unbelievable leaders of the 21st century. Not just in America, but around the world.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Samantha Joseph, and I'm a mid-career student. Myself and other people in this room are thinking of running for office, and I was wondering if you could give us some advice and also talk about the qualities that you think are most important in elected officials.
Well, I think if you consider running for office, just do it. Just do it. The young man that is running tonight in Atlanta had been a high school intern in my office. Wow. He came to me a few weeks ago with his father and said, Congressman, should I run? I said, go for it, boy, go. And he's doing very, very well, very well. I think you have to like people. You have to love people. You know, sometimes I come in contact with people who love the world. They just love the whole world, but they really don't like people. They really don't. I have a colleague of mine, a new member, who's come up to me almost every day, and he said, John, what is the word for the day? And sometimes I say, it's love. Sometimes I say, it's peace, happiness. He wanted me to give him a word that he could contemplate or hold on to during the day. Sometimes it's while we're voting, sometimes it's just walking through the halls, but just one word. Get out there, go for it. We need smart, gifted leaders, not just in America, but around the world, to create a world community at peace with itself.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Congressman Lewis. I'm up here. My name is Sarah Brentoff-Smith. I'm a mid-career student here at the Kennedy School. And as an institution that develops future leaders, I identify as a cosmopolitan universalist. And I'm a bit preoccupied with some of the things ImeIme was talking about, which is, while I do think you inspire hope and courage, I see signs that empathy is waning in many respects. And I think President Obama talked about this crisis of empathy. And we look to Syria, we look to people who are unable to empathize across whatever group line it must be here. So I wonder, could you give some advice for an aspiring leader who wants to promote empathy and the spirit of history in those who may not have it presently?
You have to believe, just believe that you have the capacity, you have the ability to get out there and lead. Some people are saying, well, President Obama's been very quiet right now, but I don't think that's going to be for long. I think he will be back out there on the road, inspiring people. he understands where we must go and the road we must travel. And there are other people, they're all not young, they're middle-aged, and some people are out of politics right now, but they'll be back out there. They're needed now more than ever before. Thank you.
Hello, ooh, that was loud, sorry. Hi, Congressman Lewis, thank you so much for coming. My name is Amanda, and I'm a freshman at the college. And my question was about reflecting back on the civil rights, because as a young person coming up, I always appreciate hearing from my elders about how we've done this battle before and how we'll win again. But my aspiration as a young person is not just to mimic or imitate what happened in the past, but to surpass it and to try to find a way to enhance that foundation. So my question for you is, what is your advice to young people who not only want to learn from the civil rights movement, but take it to the next level of progress?
Well, I think it's important to study what happened, read the literature, watch the videos, and don't make the same mistakes, the same blunders that we made. And maybe we all can learn from the past.
Can I just build on, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Amanda.
Amanda, can I build on Amanda's question?
Yes.
Because you're, again, a scarce resource, a rare jewel here for us. Do you think some of the tactics that were very successful, from the way you organized, right, and you know that from the inside out, to the use of media, which became part of the strategy as the movement unfolded, certainly by 1963 and the Great March. Do you think some of those tactics are ones that can be effective today? You were asking a variant of this when he was talking about something else. Do you think they can be effective today?
Yes. I think I would call it the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. When necessary, it is a tactic, but it's one of those immutable principles that you cannot deviate from.
That's interesting.
I think if you're going to create a beloved community, a community at peace with itself, the way must be one of love, one of peace, that you have to respect the dignity and the worth of every human being.
Absolutely. Do you, just again for our younger people in the audience, he said the philosophy and discipline of nonviolence. And I think that both are very important, especially discipline right now, because we live in such a connected age that there's so much harshness and hatred and violence, right, that's connecting us on social media, that it will take great discipline, right, to adhere, cohere, create a beloved community in this moment. So discipline.
During the 50s and 60s, we hadn't heard of the internet.
Yeah, I know. No, you bet you had. You bet you hadn't.
Right. We'd have a website. Facebook, what is that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Discipline of nonviolence.
So my name is Antonio Skurlock. I'm a retired Navy veteran. I'm a disabled veteran, although I don't look it, thank God. I'm also a federal employee with the Department of Homeland Security and part of the Kennedy School Senior Executive Fellows. And I'm humbled in your presence right now. And so one of the unique things I've been able to experience in my time in the military, especially after the 9/11 incident, sorry, I'm not very good at talking about it because it causes certain emotions, but I was underway, and what I got to feel in the room was an energy of people who were ready to go do something, anything, to react to what they had seen, what made them cry. And I feel that energy in the room right now, and that's what humbles me about your presence, because I feel a hunger from these folks to go do things, and I appreciate you making them feel that way. I don't have a question.
Well, thank you, sir.
That was good.
Hello, Congressman Lewis. My name is Amanda Moise. I am a senior here at Harvard College, It is an honor to be standing before you and asking a question. This past spring break, I went down to Mississippi with an alternative spring break program to learn about civil rights. I went to Lorraine Motel. I saw where Martin Luther King was assassinated. I went to Fannie Lou Hamer's gravesite. I went to Medgar Evers' home. I traveled all throughout the state of Mississippi, and I was truly inspired by how people who had nothing to their name were able to rise up and resist. And it was a beautiful thing, and it was incredibly inspiring. My question is, how do we get people off of the sidelines? How do we inspire people, as I was so inspired when I went down south? Anti-racist work, civil rights work is work for all of us, but so few people are actively participating in it. And while you might disagree, I think I would say that the majority of people just sit on the sidelines. But this is something that affects all of us. And how do we get those people involved? How do we get them off the sidelines? How do we make those people realize that this is something that affects them and that will impact their lives? How do we make people see that this is for all of us, this work is for all of us? Thank you.
Well, I think it's important, it is a must that we reach as many people as possible and let people know, as Dr. King suggested and stated so well, that we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters. If not, we'll perish as fools. I said earlier today that the late A. Philip Randolph would say over and over again, maybe our foremothers and our forefathers all came to this great land in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. And we got to understand that. When Pope Francis came and spoke to the joint session of the Congress, he said we're all the immigrants. So you hear people today talk about building a wall. Building a wall, and Robert Frost just did. What are we trying to do? Keep some people out or keep some people in? What is it? What is the madness? Can we all just be a little more human? We got to continue to educate and inspire. I keep saying the young people will get it. They will lead us to a better place. My faith is in the young.
I think he just gave you marching papers.
You go around to elementary school, middle school, high school, and colleges, the people, they get it. They understand. We just need to let people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for going to Mississippi and Tennessee and other places in the South. We all can learn more and be inspired.
Hello, Congressman Lewis, sorry. My name is Madeline Wood. I'm a sophomore at Wellesley College studying peace and justice. And I'm from LaGrange, Georgia, which I believe you visited before. And I just had a question about something that seems to have reoccurred throughout your life. And I was just wondering, in the situation that you referred to earlier of the Klansman coming forward and apologizing for what he did to you, what happens on the small scale when those people aren't willing to come forward and apologize and acknowledge what they did wrong, and on a larger scale when we as a nation can't recognize that racism is deeply entrenched in how we work and how we function and how we need to obliterate it, or obliterate its necessity?
Sometimes I have the feeling there's a need, I think, in America for people at the highest level of government to have what I call an executive session with themselves. and just talk, talk back to yourself. And, as a nation, we never apologized for slavery. We never apologize for the way we have treated so many people. Maybe you know something I don't know. But we need to find ways. I introduced a piece of legislation to create the African American Museum on the mall. Took me 15 years to get it through the Congress because there was one senator that kept opposing it. We had passed it in the House, but we couldn't get it through the Senate. But finally, we got it done. And when I walked through there, after it opened and was built, I cried. I learned so much. And I wish all of our children, I wish all Americans can walk through these pieces of history. Just maybe, our nation and our people would be better.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Congressman Lewis. My name is Christian Floyd, and I'm a junior at the college. I'm also a native Nashvilleian, and my entire family.
Wonderful.
Yeah, from Nashville. And my entire family is from Alabama, Troy. I actually have met you there before. And
you met in Troy?
I met you in Troy. At
Really?
George F. Grubb's funeral home. Yeah.
Well, you're the first person here that I met that was in Troy.
I don't see too many people from there around here. Yeah, but I was wondering, how did Nashville and Troy inform your worldview and how you, I guess, progressed through your life? And also, how are you able to connect with so many different people from totally different backgrounds to inspire them to change their minds and their hearts?
Well, you heard in the introduction earlier that I grew up in rural Alabama, 10 miles outside of Troy. My father had been a tenant farmer, a sharecropper. In 1944, when I was 4 years old, and I do remember when I was 4, my father had saved $300 and a man sold him 110 acres of land. My family still owns this land today. And when I finished high school, I applied to attend Troy State College, now known as Troy University. Submitted my application, my high school transcript. I never heard a word from the school. So I wrote a letter to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I didn't tell my mother, my father, any of my sisters or brothers, any of my teachers. I told Dr. King I needed his help. He wrote me back and sent me a round-trip Greyhound bus ticket and invited me to come to Montgomery to meet with him. Cool. In the meantime, I'd been accepted at a little college in Nashville, Tennessee, American Baptist. It's now known as American Baptist College before going off to Fisk. An uncle of mine gave me a $100 bill, a Foot Locker, and I put everything that I own in that Foot Locker, except the chickens that I used to raise and preach to, and took a bus to Nashville. And it was there in Nashville that I met unbelievable people. I met Rosa Parks while I was there, when I was 17. Dr. King got back in church with me. He heard that I was there. One of his classmates at Morehouse College was one of my teachers. I told this classmate of Dr. King that I had been in contact with Dr. King. So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. suggested when I was home for spring break to come and see him. So on a Saturday morning, I boarded a bus. I traveled from Troy to Montgomery. And a young lawyer, never met or seen a lawyer before, by the name of Fred Gray, who had been a lawyer for Rosa Parks, for Dr. King and the Montgomery movement, and became our lawyer during the Freedom Ride and the march from Selma to Montgomery. Met me and drove me to the First Baptist Church in downtown Montgomery and ushered me into the office of the church. I saw Martin Luther King Jr. and Reverend Ralph Abernathy standing behind a desk. I was so scared. I didn't know what to say or what to do. And Dr. King said, "Are you John Lewis? Are you the boy from Troy?" I said, "Dr. King, I am John Robert Lewis." And he still called me the boy from Troy. And that meeting Dr. King convinced me more than anything to do what I could to end segregation and racial discrimination in the South. I got involved with students from Vanderbilt and Peabody, American Baptist, Fisk, and Tennessee State, and Meharry Medical School. Every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m., a small group of students would go to a little Methodist church and study the way of peace, study the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. And it made me the person that I am today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move over here for what will be our last question.
Congressman Lewis, thank you so much for your time. My name is Yvonne, and I'm an MPA student at the Kennedy School and a Gleisman Fellow. On behalf of the other Gleisman Fellows, I want to welcome you to the Gleisman community. My question is, will you share a time in your activism work when you felt really vulnerable and a time that you don't really share or talk about much with people, and what lesson you learned from that experience?
That's a great question. Would you share a moment when you were very vulnerable in your activism work and what you learned from that experience?
Well, I learned to take the long look, to be patient, and to try to be what I call a pilot light and not a firecracker. No pilot light, you continue to burn, you continue to burn and burn. Firecracker just pop off and just going on.
It's gone.
Gone. And that sometimes people appear on the scene and it's just there for a day, a moment, and they're gone. I said sometime, and I said it during the movement, I used to say it to my family members, my sisters and brothers and my cousins, you have to pace yourself. Pace yourself for the long haul. But when in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, I became the chair in the summer of 1963, like June 1963. And my first responsibility was to help plan the March on Washington. 23 years old, had all of my hair, and a few pounds lighter. We met with President Kennedy. At the march, I spoke number 6. Dr. King spoke number 10. The day when the march was all over, going so well, so successful, President Kennedy invited us down to the White House. He stood in the door of the Oval Office greeting each one of us. And he kept saying, you did a good job, you did a good job. And when he got to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he said, you did a good job, and you had a dream. That was my last time seeing President Kennedy. When Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, it was a very sad and dark hour for me. He was my hero. I was campaigning with Robert Kennedy in Indianapolis, Indiana, when we heard that Dr. King had been assassinated. We had heard that he had been shot, but it was Bobby Kennedy who announced to the crowd that Dr. King had been assassinated. And I said to myself, will we still have Bobby? And 2 months later, I was campaigning for Robert Kennedy in California, spoke to him a few minutes before he went down to make his victory statement. He said, John, wait, I will return. He never returned. That was a low point. Oh my God. And I think one reason for me to get involved in electoral politics, to run for office, this to decide, maybe to pick up where Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy left off. President Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Bobby Kennedy became like heroes to me. They inspired me, they lifted me, they gave us a sense of hope and optimism. But I couldn't stay down. I had to get up and keep moving. And then in the summer of 1966, there were people in my own organization, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. When you read the literature of the Civil Rights Movement, some people said that I was not black enough, that I was not militant enough, I was not radical enough. We need someone to stand up to Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was my friend. He was like a big brother. We need someone to tell Lyndon Johnson where to go. That's not my style. But I'm still here.
Yeah, you sure
Still
are.
standing, trying to do my best, my way.
Here, here. Yeah, here, here. Here, here.
Congressman Lewis, it has really been such an honor to have you here today for a conversation that I'm sure no one in the audience, and certainly not myself, will ever forget. The Gleitzman Award can only kind of hardly begin to acknowledge the sacrifices and contributions you've made to this country and to make us all better. So I think it's only right that at this time we stand and applaud in honor of Congressman John Robert Lewis.
Come on, Rockstar.